Hey, it's Gerald from Lakers Fast Break. Anchor is the easiest way to make your next podcast. It's absolutely free, and their creation tools will allow you to record and edit your show right from your phone or your home computer. Anchor will then distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on great podcast outlets like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Radio Public, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can even make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. So download the free Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started on your next podcast. All right, and we're back for another episode of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from the Lakers Fast Break, Pop Culture Cosmos, Inside Sports, and Game Source. Thank you so much for listening to all of our great programs. But right here, it is the Lakers Fast Break podcast. It was a great weekend right here with me to talk about everything that went on that was important for Lakers fans out there during the All-Star break, plus also focusing in on the last part of the NBA season and what the Lakers need to do. And also, is there any buyout options? We'll talk about that coming up later in the program as well. Is my good friend, I know him as Tom Wong, but you also know him as LakerTom. You got to go ahead and catch all the things that he's doing today at Lakerholics.net and his great articles on Medium.com. And LakerTom, always great to have you back, fresh off of an All-Star kind of confusing weekend because that scoring system, while it worked out in the end, my gosh, it had everyone over here wondering what the heck was going on.
It's funny that that whole system would not have worked had the West not come back, the great comeback in the fourth quarter. I actually wrote a post in Lakerholics.net saying they should just start the fourth quarter 0-0, and play to 24. It would have been a perfect way to do it,
Exactly. That doesn't make sense. The outcome obviously worked.
Right.
But getting to there, people were trying to figure out what was going on. I know I was with a party of about 9, and we were all getting together as far as trying to understand it. And for me, I just have a point where I say, you know what, it's the All-Star game. They don't really care about it anyways. It was just nice to see them care at the end. But for the most part, it was 3 quarters of you go ahead and shoot, I'll go ahead and shoot. And I think the target score should have been 200, not 157.
Well, I know my wife came in and she saw me watching the game with the sound off while I was reading a book. And she says, this is the All-Star game. You're supposed to be watching this. And I was like, this is just a terrible game. I mean, nobody's playing defense. Nobody's even playing great offense. They're throwing up bricks. They can't hit anything. And then we go into the fourth quarter, and I wasn't really 100% sure how it was supposed to work. And then, I had thought it was just, they were just going to play for the first team to get 24 points in the fourth quarter. But it was basically the first team to get whatever the team that was ahead plus 24 points was going to be the target score. It reminds me of my girls' basketball teams where when there's 1 minute left in the hour and a half practice time that we're allotted, it's next basket wins. And that was pretty much how the game was. But boy, what a pleasure. I mean, I'm sitting there and I'm watching the end of the game just like it's a playoff game. And it was just terrific. I loved seeing AD actually intentionally blow one free throw just to add a little pressure cooker to the whole situation. But good game for the Lakers. I would have given the award to Kawhi since most of his damage was done in garbage time in the first quarter, but on the other hand, that's okay. It's a tribute to Kobe. Kobe did tutor him, and my wife says, "Who won, the West or the East?" And I says, "Well, that's even screwed up now too, because it was the West starters plus a bunch of guys from the East versus the East starters and a bunch of guys from the West. This whole choosing teams thing seems to. I would probably get rid of that and just play for 24 points in the fourth quarter." It would be a shorter quarter, which is fine because you don't want these guys to go out there and get themselves injured in a game like this that really doesn't count for anything. But I'm sure they're going to use the results of this game and in trying to create this mid-season tournament that they're pushing so hard, hoping to get that approved and, in order to shorten the season a little bit and provide a break in there. But I have to admit, it was the best All-Star game that they've had, and I can't even remember how long,
Well, it just, like I said, it's the end result worked out great, and I'm sure the league is happy and doing backflips and cartwheels and all that. But getting to there is the problem, because if people are confused about how and what's going on and how is the scoring system and what's it all about and things of that nature, and people are trying to figure out how this is all working out, then you know what? You're going to lose a lot of viewers. And that's the thing. You're trying to get more eyeballs onto your product. I mean, the reports out there have the NBA losing as much as 10 to 15% overall in the ratings, with obviously Golden State Warriors being the most affected by it because of the fact that they're not winning right now. So It was something interesting that you posted out there on Lakerholics.net. So it's interesting to see what they're trying to do. And I appreciate the fact that they're thinking outside the box. But then there's a point where there's too much thinking outside the box, and they made it a little bit too confusing for the fans out there. It's just nice to see that it all worked out in the end. Whether or not it's going to work out in successive years and make people actually care, that's another story. Because, again, I'm still not bought in. I'm still not an individual.
I'm not bought in either, Gerald. I think that they – but, at least the one thing you got to give David Silver credit for, he's not afraid to tweak things.
Adam Silver,
right? He's not afraid to tweak things and try a little different things. So hopefully they'll start out 0-0 in the fourth quarter. I thought it was kind of ironic, you see a fan win $100,000 for making a half-court shot and playing three quarters with all of that talent on the floor. You're talking about, hundreds of thousands of millions of dollars worth of players out there, and they're playing for $300,000 for charity, which seems kind of minuscule. So a lot of those guys out there give more to charity than that in just a couple of weeks' time. And the announcer keeps saying, this is for another $100,000 for another quarter. And it just all seemed a little, what happened to the, $1 million to the team that wins, or do something special. Frankly, I would like to see them get back to the one-on-one tournaments that they used to have many, many years ago.
But then it gets to the point where you're risking the player's health. Yeah. And with the large contracts, and even $1 million isn't going to do it for these players. I mean, they're not even their shoe contracts are even close to that amount because they're so much higher than that. So, I mean, when you get to that all-star level, you're not talking about a minimum rookie salary. You're not talking about a veteran's minimum right there that's right on that $1 million, $2 million mark. This is something about, for the most part, a lot of these players have nice, big, fat contracts, so they don't have to worry about things like that. And money is not going to be a real incentive for them. I think it's just something they're going to have to continue to do to try and find that challenge. They found it this year.
Yep.
I think they need to go back to
no substitutions in the fourth quarter either. I think. I think it was the same five guys played the entire time.
Exactly. I think it needs to go back to East and West personally.
Yeah, I do too.
So it's either easier to identify if you're going to do this system,
especially when they have the selection part, and LeBron ends up with five guys from the West, and Giannis ends up with five guys from the East.
No, it wasn't five. It was actually more than that.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, right now with Team LeBron, if this was actually serious and let's say that roster was the actual roster for these two teams over the course of a general season. That Team LeBron would be loaded, and I would walk to Vegas. I would walk to a hotel right here in Vegas, and I would go ahead and lay all my money down on them to win the championship right now, because they were loaded. And Team Giannis, I love Giannis as a player, incredible athlete, obviously great on the defensive end, and you don't want to see him on the break and all that, but I also don't want him picking my team. Because he, out on the play yard,
not going to be a good general manager working.
No, or even at the YMCA, man. I don't want him picking out the team because obviously he didn't pick out the. But you know what? I give them credit. They led most of the game. They took it more seriously than Team LeBron. Team LeBron just had to turn it up at the end. You can see they just had to go ahead and find that make up
that 20 points they were behind going into the fourth quarter.
Exactly.
They did in a short time.
Yeah, so it was kind of weird how that all played out. But again, the end result was effective for the NBA. Whether or not it's going to be something that long-term is going to continue to be effective, again, I still think the target score should be 200. I still think that 200 is a great number. It's something magical and mystical that I think a lot of fans would say, ooh, and ah, over, because if you're not going to take it seriously anyways during the first three quarters and just shoot, not play defense, you might as well have a high score to attain that really will get people excited.
Well, the problem with the high score, though, is you got to include the first three quarters. In the first three quarters, you can't expect these guys to do more than play one abbreviated quarter. That fourth quarter without a clock running, it's basically they should just basically make it for 24 points. If they want to honor Kobe with the whole thing, since he's become like the ambassador now of the All-Star game. So if they want to honor him, just play the first three quarters for charity, and then play the fourth quarter for real, and just 0 to 24, whoever gets there first. They could do it like you do with the old 21 game, where if you don't hit 21 on the nose, go back to 11 again.
Why don't they just play horse? There you go.
I mean, listen, we even had blocking calls and we had challenges from the coaches. There were a couple of good challenges there.
Yeah, there was. But I mean, like I said, it wasn't exciting for us as fans to watch until the last 5 minutes. Yeah, until the last 5 minutes. And then it became something I think a lot of people would see. But then again, you have to sit through all that junk.
To get there.
No defense. You make a layup, you make a 3-pointer. I'll let you go ahead. I'll laugh. Yuck. And then, it's just it didn't take it seriously until you go ahead at the end of the game. So I'm hoping that at some point in time the NBA will look at that first part of the actual game itself and see what they can do to do some tweaks there. Because obviously
I don't know what you can do on that unless they did this. They could go in there with higher, like there's been some talk about how many people I think they elect 12 people on each side for each team, whereas the normal roster is 15. So what they could do is they could make a 20-man roster and have 4 teams and play each team ending, your 15th to 16th to 20th guys would play in the first quarter. Your 11th to 15th guys would play in the second quarter. Your 6th to 10th guys would play in the third quarter. And in the fourth quarter, you'd have your starters play.
Well, there you go. That sounds like a plan right there, at least an idea thrown out there.
Well, everybody gets to play, and everybody gets to be competitive. And you can add up the points for the whole game that way. And, there's a lot of winners, basically. There's 4 winners plus the overall winner.
Well, you might want to contact the NBA on that. Let them know, because you've got an idea down there that may actually have some weight to it.
Never a shortage of ideas.
Okay, never a shortage of ideas.
Yes, but ideas, no.
Okay, fair enough indeed. We'll be back with more of the Lakers Fast Break podcast. Check out what's been going on with the Pop Culture Cosmos Show and the PCC Multiverse.
I see the potential for basically like another Netflix kind of paradigm shift where here comes this other major player. They have a ton of resources. Apple could change the way that entertainment is consumed.
They say it's the only time this year that you'll have stars from each brand battling each other, and we know it's not going to be the case, but they like to say that, and more power to them, I guess.
Well, it's a big first step, bringing all those superheroes together. There were definitely some parts of the movie that I really enjoyed, and then there were some parts that I thought just kind of fell short of expectation.
Part of it has to be something to do with how it's being promoted, and this is a thing where audiences do not agree with critics.
That's the Pop Culture Cosmos Show.
And the PCC Multiverse, every week on Apple Podcasts.
And over a dozen of your favorite streaming and podcasting options. Once again, I'm talking to LakerTom from LakerHolics.net. You got to be part of the conversation today at LakerHolics.net. You know, my friend, the All-Star Game weekend, LeBron did okay. AD did okay, and obviously hit that last free throw to win the game. You mentioned Kawhi getting the MVP. Overall, it was an okay weekend for Lakers there. Obviously, the spectacle and the focus had to be on honoring and remembering Kobe Bryant, and
Right.
I appreciate that, especially the great concert during halftime. I really enjoyed that part.
Common did a great job in the introduction,
absolutely.
too. That was
and Jennifer Hudson
extremely well done.
Jennifer Hudson did an amazing job with her tribute to Kobe, and Magic Johnson did as well. And it was great for weekend. Dwight Howard trying to harken back his old days. They're showing that great photo of him in the air, just like he was when he was 22. It was obviously a great picture, but unfortunately he didn't go ahead and advance in the slam dunk competition. And I kind of think Aaron Gordon won. I think he got ripped off. I mean, anytime you jump over Taco Fall.
Well, but jumped over Taco, but Taco ducked about a foot.
He was scared for his life.
I didn't watch the. Actually, I had to go to the movies with my wife right when the 3-point contest ended, so I didn't get to watch the dunk contest. And I came back, and the first dunk that I saw when I was going through the videos of it was Dwight's dunk. And frankly, I thought his dunk was spectacular. The thing about it is, though, you couldn't really appreciate it in real time, because when they slowed it down and you saw what he really did, I mean, that was really, he got robbed on that dunk. I mean, it wasn't a winning dunk, but it sure was a lot better than a 41 according to their scores. And the dunk, the 3-point shooting contest was pretty good, I thought. The dunk contest, though, none of it had the excitement of some of the previous dunk contests. I thought it was a disappointment in that sense.
But that's the problem. The dunk contest in itself is something that, in so many years now, there's been all these dunks have been played out. There's not much left you can do in regards to originality that we haven't seen before, or the judges haven't seen before. So these dunks that are even getting a 50, 5 straight 10s across the board.
Right.
They're dunks that I think maybe a couple years ago.
Nobody got a 50,
Yeah.
I mean, I would see Dominique do things that you couldn't even believe, and Jordan do things, Dr. J and so forth, and never you would just see 50s. You'd see 48s and 47s.
And they were giving them out like candy here.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'll tell you what, it was a good weekend overall for the NBA. I mean, a way to try and revitalize the league after the horrible death of Kobe Bryant and his daughter and all those individuals. So I think it was a way for them to start the healing process. Obviously, it continues next week on the 24th with the memorial at Staples Center, so that will continue there. But, it's still the NBA, the Lakers, everybody is still healing and still trying to figure out what's going on with the future without Kobe Bryant. I mean, I still see the Lakers boards still just paying tribute after tribute after tribute all day long to Kobe Bryant, and the pictures and the memes and the gifs that are out there. It's so sad to see people not being able to let go because they had such an endearing love for Kobe Bryant. And it's going to be hard for a lot of people to try and move on because he was so important. He was such an important part of their lives.
I wish that everybody, myself included, had appreciated Kobe more when he was here. It's sometimes sad, and when you look back and you see somebody who really meant so much to the game and so much to so many people, that we all have this huge outpouring of appreciation and respect for everything he meant to the game and what he meant to us. And you just wish that almost everybody I know feels the same way. You just wish you could have had a moment to say that before it all happened.
I just wish I would have met him and said thank you. That's probably one of the things I would love to have said to him had he were still alive today. But again, it isn't going to be the case. But again, we as Laker fans and also basketball fans have to go ahead and try and move on. I know that's what he would want, is to try and go ahead and focus in on what's going ahead with the league. And it is looking like it's going to be a pretty good shootout as we get closer to the playoffs. The Lakers right now are ahead by 4 games in the Western Conference. That thrilling game in Denver in overtime.
5 games in the loss column.
5 games in the loss column, but 4 games overall. Let's put it in perspective here. 4 games overall, ahead of Denver, and 5 games overall ahead of the LA Clippers. 5.5
against the Clippers in the loss column.
Yeah, 6 in the loss column. I know you love that loss column.
I do love the loss column.
I look at the overall 5 games because they could have an extra easy game against Golden State, or they could have an extra easy game, against another low end team that could give them an easy win. So it balances itself out. But they also Utah, which has surged and dropped and surged and dropped. And it looks like they're back on the right path right now after a little bit of a skid. They're 5.5 out. So there's somebody, they're a team that actually you have to watch out for, I think, as well.
I think you got to watch out for the Rockets, too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Small ball Rockets. I mean, they're on the horizon.
Got a 6'8" center now.
Yeah. I mean,
DeMar
Carroll looks like they're going to go ahead and get him on the buyout market from San Antonio. Which is kind of a shame because there's another wing that the Lakers, and it's just how is Houston having this intel, or how are they connecting or contacting? I mean, this is some shady stuff that's going on because Marvin Williams, when he leaves, he would have been a perfect fit for the Lakers.
These guys are under contract too.
They talk. I understand that talk. It's a rhetorical question because you and I both already know the answer, and they talk and communicate. I mean, Woj knows what's going on. And the league knows what's going on. You cannot tell me they turned a full blind eye to this, but this is some shady stuff that's going on. I think, in my opinion, that is not allowing them to take a look at the entire landscape and say, you know what, maybe you want to go ahead to this team or that team. I mean, the Clippers. Well, let's put things in perspective for just a sec. The Clippers still have an open spot, if I remember correctly. Why wouldn't you want to go ahead there if you've got the spots already open? And they have a better record than Houston, but it just seems like there's some shady stuff going on where players are communicating to agents and agents are communicating, or players to another, to one player to another, and just some shady stuff going on, which is causing these buyouts. So before I get into any list of what's left or what could be possibly available on the horizon that maybe the Lakers could get in a buyout, your thoughts on the whole buyout process itself, because to me it just, again, like we saw during the free agency, especially in the beginning where all these players already knew where we're going because they had already communicated before the memorandum had already stopped, had already been lifted. It just seems like it's just very shady and underhanded and something that the league is not able to control. Yeah,
it's really hard. It's really hard when you get involving with tampering with the players or their agents, And one of the things you have to think about with respect to these guys is, Carroll, for example, had more than a year's worth of salary. He had 2 years in his contract. So basically the logic behind all of the players.
Actually, he had 3 if you include this one.
If I'm going to negotiate a buyout, then I got to know exactly where I'm going and what they're going to pay me. And it'd be interesting to find out the Rockets actually have a big hunk of their MLE still available. And they have the full taxpayer MLE. So that's a $10 million minus whatever portion of it they've used. So this may not be a minimum salary type of situation, even though it's mitigated by this previous team having to pay part of that buyout.
But it's only it's like a flat maximum. Yeah. It's like it's very minimal. I mean, his contract was not big anyways, so San Antonio does have to eat the rest of his contract for this season, or that's not paid for by Houston.
He's probably going to get more than – he's not going to just be playing for his old contract.
No. But he has to – he's only allotted a certain amount because he can't go over it based off of what he – I mean, he has still that contract. I mean, San Antonio still has to pay for that contract out as far as for each of the 3 seasons, this season, the next season, and the season after, because I think there's, like I said, a $1.3 buyout on the end, $1 million buyout on the end that he has to deal with. So this one was a kind of an out of the blue type buyout, which was kind of strange because he didn't, San Antonio eating this type of cost, whatever it is that's left over the course of 2-3 seasons is kind of, any amount. It's a small amount comparatively, but yeah, it's still an amount. So it's kind of unusual that they did that. But you know what?
For a competing team.
Yeah, exactly. For a team that they want to go ahead and compete against, and so they're trying to get a playoff spot. So it's kind of different and weird that they did that. But you know what? It is the financial situation that we're now in. And Damari, obviously not happy with his playing time, told Popovich, I want out. Is there any other players that are out there that you're hoping fall into the laps of the Lakers? Mo Harkless, I think if go and ask for buyouts, would be prime candidates to go ahead and be on the roster. Mo Harkless, 6'9", can defend the wings, can shoot 40% from 3.
He's really only 6'7", according to the latest NBA stats.
Okay, I'll go with the
6'9". He shrunk 2 inches when they decided to actually measure everybody at the start of the year.
Then everybody else I know also did the same thing. They shrunk a little bit,
I know.
I included. So, I know he was.
As I've gotten older, I've shrunk too. I used to be 5'9", and I was 5'8" when I went into high school. With 1 inch, and now I've gone back down to 5'8".
I'll tell you what, it's just
Harkless would be a good ad for the Lakers. There's a reason he started most of the games for the Clippers, and it's his defense. He's a good defender. Reggie Jackson,
I think he's the best of the bad lot.
I'm not as high on.
But he can create his own shot, and he can create it for other players, and that's something the Lakers need. And we're not talking about somebody that you can go ahead and need for 30 minutes a game. You just need him for the 10 minutes a game in the playoffs that LeBron needs to sit for. And let me ask you this. Do you want Reggie Jackson out there, or do you want Rajon Rondo? I know my answer, but I'm not sure if I know yours.
It's funny. I've probably been a lobbyer for the Lakers to make moves much more strongly than most people were before the trade deadline. I really felt like there was a little bit too much credit being given to the great chemistry of the locker room, and that the fears of disrupting that chemistry were overrated. I always thought chemistry basically started with the organization and the superstars that you have running this organization, the coach that you have doling out the minutes and so forth. And I never really felt that if you traded 2 players, you were still going to end up in the buyout market. Even if you didn't make the trade, you were still going to end up waiving a couple of guys to make roster spots. It's kind of strange, though. Right now, at this point in time, I'm almost thinking that we may not make a change.
I don't think so either, personally. Although if one of those 2 names pops up, I definitely think they should consider it. I'm not a fan of J.R. Smith at this point in time. I'm not a fan of any of the other real players that are out there.
Right.
Tyler Johnson, I'm not even a big fan of his. I mean, I understand he's a combo guard, but if he couldn't make it on the Suns, then really, what do you expect from him?
I don't see any of the guys we're talking about, Gerald, really being an impact player that come in and change things for the Lakers at this point in time.
Then why make the change?
I do think that there's a start of a recognition by Frank Vogel and his staff that a lot of the Rajon Rondo minutes now basically should go to Caruso. I think that that's something that we're going to see. And Caruso's not going to help the playmaking situation. He's actually a pretty poor playmaker once he gets into the lane. He's a poor decision maker once he gets into the lane, but he plays great defense. He has good chemistry with everybody. And I think the Lakers are probably most likely going to just hold steady and stand pat through the buyout market, frankly. And I don't blame them. I think that when you get to the playoffs also, you're going to see LeBron play more minutes. He's going to play 40 minutes a game. It's going to limit down to 8 minutes that you really have to get a second playmaker in there. And I think that maybe they're not going to do it the way I would, which is surround AD with shooters when LeBron sits and is taking his rest. But I think what you're going to see is a lot of activity, a lot more activity and focus on getting AD to become a bigger threat and a person who can carry us during those moments when LeBron is sitting. Because right now, basically, when you look at the stats, the on and off stats for LeBron and AD, we play terrific with both of them on the floor. We're almost unbeatable. You take AD off of the floor, we're still just dominating teams. But when you take LeBron off of the floor, we have a negative status. We have a negative net rating with AD on the floor, and that really shouldn't be. So I think it's up to the coaching staff to make changes. One of them is going to be fewer minutes for Rajon Rondo. If he doesn't go out there and start hitting shots right away, bam, he's going to be pulled and sitting the rest of the time. He'll have that occasional playoff Rondo game, and that's great. He'll let him have that game. But otherwise, give those minutes to somebody else.
We're signaling the ref for a quick timeout, but we'll be back with more of the Lakers Fast Break podcast.
Rob McCallum Films is back with a vengeance. Power of Grayskull, the definitive history of He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, which chronicles the ultimate 80s billion-dollar franchise, Masters of the Universe. See exclusive interviews and hear untold stories from the people responsible for creating the world of Eternia, a place full of magic and science, and learn about the craft of creating action figures and animation. Power of Grayskull is just one of our many projects at Rob McCallum Films.
I think that's the thing with Frank Vogel. If he sees a hot person, it's the old, hot man up.
And I don't mind that. I think that's fine.
He plays well. Rondo plays well when he's with LeBron, but only when he's with LeBron does he play well. And that seems to be the issue. And defensively, he's an eyesore out there because he can't stay with any of the fast guards or the elite guards.
And he gambles too much. He gambles and leaves. It breaks the rotation completely when you gamble like that.
And when you have LeBron doing the same thing, because we see LeBron, he cheats over, he lays off of guys, he doesn't.
Some pretty good defense in the All-Star game by LeBron.
Yeah, and when he wants to turn on it defensively, he still can. But you see a lot of times when they're playing, people are complimenting LeBron on his defense at times, but I see LeBron sometimes leave open shooters. He'll just stay closer to the basket, and he'll leave three-point shooters just because he doesn't respect them. And you'll see them, hit the shots, and you're like, well, who was guarding him? And it was LeBron because he's just laying off them. But LeBron, when he wants to turn up defensively, can still do that very well. I'm not disputing that, and nor am I going to.
He still has the second-best defensive rating on the team.
Yeah, and if he didn't poke at Joel Embiid, he would have stopped Joel Embiid, too, on that last play down, that was near the end of the All-Star game.
That was a good step back, though, to Joel. That fadeaway that he put, nobody's going to block that shot.
Yeah, but, he can still play that great defense. Right. He just picks and chooses his spots, which is understandable at his age. Right. I get that. That's no problem. But when you have Rondo on the floor doing the same thing, they play well off of each other on the offensive end, especially if Rondo's hitting his shots. But on the defensive end, still, it's a problem. And I think that's something that the Lakers have to think about going forward. That's why I said if Reggie Jackson does pop out, I think he's able to go ahead and at least buy you those minutes a little bit more effectively than Rajon Rondo could. But again, Reggie Jackson he's going to be, if he decides to go ahead and be bought out, he's going to be a wanted man all over the NBA. So it's not just going to be the Lakers.
And I think that the Lakers, I don't know. I have a strong feeling now. Maybe I'll be totally wrong, and they'll go out and they'll cut two guys and bring in a couple of buyout guys. I tend to think that LeBron and AD have pretty much told the front office and the staff that, hey, there's nobody out there that we want more than the guys that we've got already with us.
But none of them can really guard a Kawhi.
Nope.
That's from at the wings that are out there. That's really going to be hard, and they still have a lot of issues.
Kawhi. What you do is you double Kawhi because you can always count on Paul George having an off game.
Yeah, but then
he's only going to have 2 games out of 7 where he plays well.
I mean, that's why you brought in Marcus Morris Sr. That's why you have Lou Williams out there. That's the thing. You start to double Kawhi, and that's where your problems start there as well. So, I mean, the Clippers, they scare a lot of people out there. Although in Vegas, they're not scaring the Vegas enough because the Lakers still are the favorite team going into this last segment of the season. And they're still ahead of Milwaukee and the Clippers, so at least they still have faith here in Vegas. But I ask you,
the Clippers, the thing you got to realize about Milwaukee is they're really still unproven, because Giannis hasn't proven he can win it in a big game. At the end of a game, when shooting really counts and people are stacking up the middle, just like you saw in the All-Star game, it's hard for Giannis to score. If he doesn't have confidence in his shot, you need to realize I went through the logs. He did no other game this year that he did 5 out of 8 3-point shots. No other game against no other team in 40-something games did he shoot 5 out of 8 or better than that. That one game he was hot from outside. I think for me it all goes back to when you get into the playoffs, there is no better proven playoff performer who's not injured right now than LeBron James. And when you look at that game that we played against Denver, and the last game before the All-Star break, I think you saw there what kind of a game the Lakers can put together. And even with their deficiencies, even with not having that second playmaker, that third scorer, that elite wing defender, we saw a team that was going to be awful hard to anybody to beat. And when you get into the playoffs and you look at a team that really leads the league in winning on the road against good teams, the only 3 teams that have got winning records now that have beat the Lakers are the Clippers and the 2 teams from the East, the Bucks and the Raptors. And we're going to play them again, all of those teams. And I think by the time we finish the end of the season, the Lakers will continue to be the favorites to win it all. And I don't think they need to make a change at this point in time. I don't think that they're going to risk making a change. And I think they showed the kind of mettle that they can put out there. Even then, if you look at the All-Star game and you look at the other All-Stars that were finishing out that game and playing, it really came down to LeBron James finding an open Anthony Davis who was unguardable down on the box and getting the right pass to him at the right minute to win that game. So I feel pretty confident about where we are as a team. I think that we're going to see some coaching changes as far as strategy goes to involve AD more, make him more of a focal point, especially when LeBron is out of the game, find ways to get him the ball on the move rather than just flipping it out to him on the wing and letting him, go one-on-one. And I think defensively, we're going to do a lot of different things too. I think we're going to see a lot more of the same defense that we played against Harden, played against the Clippers. You just don't go, you can't allow somebody like Harden to go one-on-one, and you can't allow Kawhi Leonard to be guarded by KCP one-on-one or Danny Green one-on-one. You basically got to take the ball out of their hands, and we have a good enough rotation and defense that I thought we showed that well, and I feel comfortable in that sense. It'll be interesting to see. I could be wrong, and the Lakers could go out there and cut 3 guys and bring in 3 new guys. I just don't see it based upon the guys that are out there who are available.
If that's the case and we have to sit through a matchup between Kawhi and Jared Dudley, I'm going to point to you, my friend. I'm going to point to you and say, we didn't need to make changes because...
I didn't say I was going to put Dudley on him.
Okay, fair enough, because he's the closest thing to a backup wing after Kuzma that we have.
I put 2 guys on him.
All right, just making sure. But
one thing you know about Kawhi's going to pass the ball if you double team him.
All right, well, I'm still hoping that it won't come to the point where after the season we're saying, hey, they should have made some changes. They should have made some tweaks. They should have. Too late for that.
Too late for that. And, Harkless might be the only possibility. And the word is that he might not even be available till late in the month, February.
He has to be available by the end of the month.
By March 1st, or he can't be on the payroll roster.
That's correct. But there's still a lot of good teams right now in this next 5 to 7 game stretch that they have to focus on, including some of the East powerhouses, including Milwaukee, Boston, and Philadelphia. So I think they should still keep their focus there and try to do what they can to get that playoff mentality started, because if they don't, it could be a little bit of a shakeup, at least early on before the schedule gets a little bit easier.
Right. Yeah, those 3 games with the East are going to be are early. I guess they're all in early March, I think. And that's going to be a nice stretch to see what we can do. It's kind of interesting. Every time this team has had one of those little stretches, where everybody is saying, well, you got to prove yourself in this stretch, and they prove themselves. Got to prove yourself in this stretch. They go out and prove themselves. I don't think those teams, all 3 of them, are as good as the Clippers. Still see the Clippers as the second best team assuming that they're all healthy. And that's not an assumption that you can really count on at this point in time. But we'll see, but I think that you'll feel more confident, just as I will feel more confident, and the Lakers will feel more confident if they go through and they take those 3 teams in the East. So those are home games and revenge games, if you will, in a sense.
The first game comes up is Memphis. Sunday you have Boston, and then Tuesday after that you have New Orleans heading up. So Zion is in there, and that's something I think we'll talk about on next week's show is
right.
The Zion phenomenon. Say that 10 times fast. I'll tell you what, it's just something that is amazing to see. And if you've not seen Zion Williamson yet, my goodness, you're in for a treat because he is something special. But again, Tom, we're going to talk about that coming up on Monday and talk about LeBron versus Zion, because I know that the league is just salivating right now at that. All these matchups that they were hoping for earlier in the season, they're finally starting to pay off. So I think ratings will tick back up a little bit.
I tend to agree with you.
Yeah, because of the fascination.
Good matchups coming the second half of the season, and even the fans, it's not like baseball, but 82 games is a lot of games, man.
It's not like baseball. I mean, where it's 162 games and they still cheat. Oh, I'm sorry, did I say that?
Know.
But
speaking of that, I can't understand how they cannot take away the Astros titles.
My favorite player, Mike Trout, said it best. He's ashamed for the players that are supposed to be colleagues, supposed to be individuals that are holding the same standard. And obviously they didn't. They didn't for a long time. And he wonders, during the 20 games,
balls, man.
during the 20 games that he played, how did it affect his team and could have affected their season adversely? So all these players that are getting off scot-free and with these fake apologies.
It's a bad state of affairs.
Exactly.
For Major League Baseball.
It is. Rob Manfred, it's all on him. It's all on him to make the right call, and he didn't. And it's a shame because it only makes people look at Major League Baseball in even less of a fashion that they did before. True, most teams still get 3.5 million fans coming to their stadiums each and every year. That's notwithstanding because people still like to go to the ballpark, but watching it on TV, all the other things that you want to go ahead and do, spend your money and things like that on baseball, those things get less and less because you ignore what's in front of you. And Rob Manfred, I mean, I'll tell you what, it's just something that is very disappointing to see him make the decisions that he made. It was something that, he could have made the right call.
I would hope that they will still look at this again,
I think he's going to have to at least look at it. I'm not going to say he's going to go ahead and, revert.
At the worst, they have to put an asterisk next to those titles.
No, I just think he's going to have to go ahead and at least look at it again, or at least say he's going to go ahead and look at it, even though his public statements have already said he's done with it. And that's a shame. But I think
they keep Pete Rose out of the Hall of Fame. What are they going to do with these guys?
Yeah, I know. Pete Rose is a different story. Pete Rose tried to go ahead and say, you know what, if you're going to allow these cheaters, let me at least go back in because I didn't do anything near as egregious as this.
Yep.
And that's something that you have to look at. And that's a double standard right there. That's almost in line for litigation right there if I was Pete Rose, but that's beside the point. I mean,
right.
I still think the debate on Pete Rose as far as into the Hall of Fame, I'm still a Steve Garvey fan. Steve Garvey should be in the Hall of Fame too. So if you're going to put Pete Rose in, you need to put Steve Garvey in because he actually produced really hardcore numbers but then again, he's the all-time hit leader. I get that. It's catchy. Played enough seasons to qualify for that. So, I don't want to get anybody's case on there on Pete Rose.
Well, if you're a Dodger fan or a Yankee fan, you got to be pissed.
Exactly. That's the moral of the story there. I mean, I'm not saying
travesty and an injustice.
And I'm not saying give the title.
Not on the game.
I'm not saying give the title to them because the Dodgers and Yankees.
No, but you better put an asterisk on those titles.
Yeah. Well, I would take away those titles. I would take away those championships. Just say
I'd take them away too. Vacate it.
Vacate it all. But I mean, if it was in the NBA, I think Adam Silver. After what I've seen,
I wouldn't have a doubt that Adam Silver would.
Out. But, hey. In NFL, I'm not so sure about that. So NFL's, a different breed altogether. But we won't go.
Well, the NFL's already shown it with the way they treat the Patriots that none of that matters.
Yeah, none of that definitely matters. Absolutely. We'll be back with more of the Lakers Fast Break podcast.
Hey, listener, Dutch here from Voice from the Underground, the podcast. My co-host and I want to invite you to check out our little corner of the podcast verse. At Voice from the Underground, we talk about all the crazy happening around us and try to make a little bit of sense out of the nonsense with little to no results. If the idea of hearing three semi-intelligent, outspoken nerds talk about politics, social issues, current events, sports, movies, pretty much anything that we decide to talk about because, well, it's our show, appeals to you, grab your shovel and come on down to the underground, and then consult a qualified psychotherapist. Find us wherever you get your podcasts, just not where you buy your weed.
Voice from the Underground.
Once again, I'm talking to LakerTom from LakerHolics.net. You got to be part of the conversation today at LakerHolics.net and read his great articles that are now available at Medium.com, which he also transfers over to LakerHolics.net. There's a great group of people there waiting to converse with you about the Lakers and the NBA, so do it today at LakerHolics.net. And for us at the Lakers Fast Break, we truly would appreciate if you get a chance to listen to us on any of those podcast apps. If you can give us a 5-star or subscribe to us and all that, we truly are humbled and appreciate it if you do so. We cannot thank you enough for doing that if that's the case. And if you know any other Lakers fans out there, please spread the good word about the Lakers Fast Break podcast. Also as well, want to give some good love to the Discovery Community Network, which we're on, and also our newest network, the RTF Sports Network, which we're on Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Cannot thank enough to the RTF Sports Network for allowing us on the air each and every week into everybody's homes via the RTF Sports Network. So check it out, all the other great shows that are there as well. But enough promoing, my friend. We're going to get back to closing out on the Lakers and what they need to do going forward, because I have a feeling you're right, Tom. When all is said and done and March 1st comes around, unless something surprising happens, I think it is going to be the roster that we're going to have out there. I think we're going to see the same 12 individuals unless DeMarcus Cousins gets a little bit healthier. If that's the case, that could be something that could be thrown in late in the season. Whether or not he gets help substantially or even incrementally, that remains to be seen. But we're going to have the roster, I think, on March 1st, like you said, and say, you know what, this is what we're going to go to battle with, and this is what we're going to go to war with. This is what we're going to go to the playoffs in and go from there. So I want to ask you this, heading into the last part of the season, what are some of the things that the Lakers need to focus on in this last part of the season to get tuned up for the playoff run?
One of the interesting thoughts is that Frank Vogel has actually said to people that we're not going to show everything we have before the playoffs. All of the discussions we've had in the past about Anthony Davis playing at center have had Anthony coming out very clearly saying, hey, I don't mind playing center when the playoffs come. The Lakers have done a great job with the combo center of JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard. They have just terrific defensive ratings, terrific rebounding ratings, especially on the offensive glass.
Sometimes it doesn't work out because when teams go small like Houston, they play those two right off the court.
Yeah, and it is, and what's difficult about it is that you know that teams like the Clippers who sag in on the Lakers and dare us to shoot from outside and turn the game into, you know, whether or not we can hit our threes. It's hard when you only got 2 3-point shooters out there and you've got JaVale McGee or Dwight Howard holding one of those spots, and then Rajon Rondo comes in and holds another spot. I think one of the adjustments that we will see, and I also am not one of those who think that you can just pull something off in the playoffs and have it work. You need to actually practice this kind of stuff. And during the season, you don't have time to practice things really. So I expect the Lakers to play a lot more small ball with AD on the floor and LeBron off. I think they'll start surrounding him with more shooters. I don't think we'll see as many people in the rotation as we've seen before, as we've seen up to now. I think we're going to see a narrowing of the rotation. I think there will be some load management and keeping LeBron and AD's minutes down. I expect a big reduction in Rondo's minutes going forward, unless he's just really red hot right off of the bat in a game. I think he may end up spending a lot of time on the pine. They can spin it however they want. They're saving playoff Rondo for the playoffs because that's fine with me, and I'm sure it's fine with you. But I think we're going to see a lot more of Caruso. I think the big question in my mind for the second half of the season is the job of a coach is to figure out how to get the best out of each one of his players. And I think Frank Vogel has done a good job with that, with two exceptions. One exception is Anthony Davis. I think when Anthony Davis is alone without LeBron James to feed him, Vogel needs to try lots of different things to try to get him going and really take advantage of that superstar ability that he has, because he really hasn't done a good enough job now of optimizing Anthony's talent when he's playing without LeBron. And then the second player I think falls into that same category is Kyle Kuzma. We didn't trade Kuzma at the trade deadline, and I think it was really probably more that we just didn't get the offer that we felt was worth it. But that's not going to protect Kuzma this summer. This summer we will have a first-round draft choice to offer. We will have 3 guys who had no trade.
I don't know if you can't trade it right away. You remember that because of the
but you can trade it on draft day.
Yeah, that's true. You can trade the individual.
You can trade it on draft day, and now everybody knows that, so they'll work that out. You've got really 3 players: JaVale McGee, Rajon Rondo, and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, who, because their bird rights would be at risk if they were traded immediately after signing, could not be traded at the trade deadline, but will be eligible should they re-up, and all 3 of them are likely to re-up, especially if we win a championship. So all of a sudden you've got a $8 million a year guy, a $5 million a year guy, and a $4 million a year guy that you can now all of a sudden add to the trade assets that you had before. So we're going to be in a lot better situation in the summer. Then also next year, because we're going to be over the salary cap, we have the opportunity to get the full MLE, which is $10 million a year. So there's a lot of weapons that the Lakers will have to improve the team next year, even without giving up, let's say, the possibility of creating almost max money to offer to Giannis to sign with the Lakers in 2021. Vogel has to really find out what's the key to getting Kuzma going, because he hasn't gotten going. He's still now ranking 10th or 11th on the team in net rating, and he's still not producing and contributing anything close to what it is. And if his value goes down by the end of the year, that's not going to help the Lakers. They really need him to come along and start averaging 17, 18 points per game, start picking up his minutes and so forth, taking minutes away from some of the other guys at the end of the bench. And so I think the focus that Vogel has for the second half of the season is really to do a better job of optimizing the talent that he's got in those 2 guys and the potential to help the team with those 2 guys. And if he can do that, that will put us in a really good situation, both entering the playoffs as a better team with more weapons and a tighter rotation. And it'll also give us a trade asset in the summertime. The guy that I'm really excited about, I think, is the Chicago Bulls point guard, Zach LaVine. I think he would be a perfect addition to the Lakers.
Well, he's not a point guard. He's a shooting guard. He's off guard.
Well, he's a shooting guard, but he still contributes 4 assists per game. Actually, he's listed as a point guard, even though Chris Dunn actually plays a lot of point for them.
Not on my fantasy roster, my friend.
Well, you don't, with LeBron on the team, you don't really need, a guy who can contribute 4. It's not that much different from Collison or somebody like that, but he's a 20-point per game, 39% three-point shooter, very athletic, and would be a perfect fit for the Lakers. Kuzma Green and a first-round pick would be likely to get him, and he's very likely to be demanding a trade by the time we get to summer.
Because that would be a good pickup for the Lakers. Obviously, a little younger, a little more athletic, and obviously,
and then you add DeMarcus Cousins. Then you add DeMarcus Cousins, a healthy DeMarcus Cousins, whom I don't think is going to play this year. Frankly, I would be against him almost playing this year. That's how he got injured last year, by coming back from the Achilles. You don't want him to come back from the ACL, and he's had 3 injuries to the same side of his body there. They've all been on the same side of the body. But the reason he's on this roster, as I've said many times, and the reason he hasn't been cut, and the reason maybe why we even turned down a trade for Marcus Morris, is that he's AD's guy. He's the guy that AD wants to play center. He's the guy that is the stretch 5 center that basically could shoot 300 threes at 36% and take all of that pressure off of AD, plus deal defensively with any of the bangers that are out there. So they want to keep him healthy, sign him to a 2-year deal for maybe the same amount as he's getting now, use part of the MLE for that. And you've got a guy that you can then turn around and have bird rights. And if he has a couple of great years in those 2 years playing next to AD, he's your third superstar next year. And you add him to whatever else you could get for a trade with Kuzma and a few of the other pieces. And the Lakers, will be in perfect shape. I'm also not afraid of signing guys that it would be on contracts next summer. I think we've seen that the resurrection of the sign and trade has now made it unnecessary for you to have cap space to go after a superstar. Because you go after a superstar, and we saw that there were 10 sign and trade deals done last year, where we never had seen 2 or 3 deals in the last 2 or 3 years before that. So even if you got a guy that like Zach LaVine, who's got 2 years left on his contract, you'd have a guy with an expiring contract back. You could trade Zach LaVine for Giannis, and that would be a better deal for somebody like the Bucks. And that's basically what happened. I mean, it's what happened with Kemba Walker. It's what happened with D'Angelo Russell. It's what happened with so many of the stars last year. So I think the Lakers have a good opportunity to finish this season strong, and I think we'll win the championship. And if we do, then we'll even be better next year. Next year we'll have a lot of leverage that we did not have this year to make a trade during the summer that we couldn't make at the trade deadline.
Once again, I'm speaking to Tom Wong. I know that, but you know him as LakerTom, part of Lakerholics.net. Be part of the conversation today at Lakerholics.net. We've got less than 5 minutes left, my friend. If you could please let us know what's going on at Lakerholics.net so everybody can go ahead and sign up today at all the good stuff going on at Lakerholics.net.
Well, there's been some great online conversations about the All-Star game, obviously. One of the things that I found interesting is that one of our editors, Sean, basically posted an article about doing away with the blocking foul for help defenders and proposed that as a part of a whole bunch of things that we started. And it ended up in a great thread that basically was talking about all of the rules changes that you could make in the league to reduce the number of fouls, speed up the game, eliminate injuries, and just make the game a little more exciting. And at the head of that list was this whole idea that why don't you eliminate help defenders sliding over? That's always the toughest call to make, because did they slide over before the offensive player left the ground, and were they moving, and all of these various things. And then the simple fact that it's a miracle that we haven't seen some major injuries. You got LeBron James going into Kyle Lowry, for example, and Kyle Lowry is lucky that he's still alive if he has a collision like that. The whole idea that you still have to make a basketball play, that you can't just block the way. And you'd still call somebody if somebody comes down and just runs over somebody or puts their shoulder into them and knocks them out or pushes off with his hand and stuff. Those would still be offensive fouls. But the whole idea that you just can't have help defenders coming over and stuffing up the lane. And that's one of the things I think that I'm sure there are a lot of old school defensive minded players and coaches who would say, my God, that's a travesty. You're just giving everything to the offense. But the game is entertainment. That's really what it's about. And you want to see LeBron driving down the middle. You want to see the great players doing acrobatic dunks and things and attacking the rim. And the biggest detriment that we have against attacking the rim today are help defenders sliding in there and taking a charge, which, is a big turnaround of a score. So I think that's something that is one of the things. There were a couple of other ideas that were put out by other people in the discussion. The difference, let's say, between the amount of physicality that's allowed by a defender inside the paint versus the defender on the perimeter. It used to be that you could pretty much beat up anybody anywhere on the court, and you got a guy hand checking you as a 225-pound point guard, and his hands are like iron. So they've eliminated all of that on the exterior. But if you get down into the paint, it's almost anything goes, You can almost punch guys out and so forth down in the paint. And they ought to have the same set of rules for guys in the perimeter and the interior. And then the third thing is the things that it's the Shaq LeBron rule. They're so big that they never get the bump fouls. So there was a great discussion. It's just one of the threads that's happened over the last few days that everybody seemed to jump on and have a lot of opinions of how it could improve the game, the speed of the game, the number of fouls called, and just the continuity that you see in a great game when it comes down. Now it's sometimes, you look at the last of the games and they go play for 10 seconds and there's a timeout. And then you play for another 20 seconds, there's another timeout. Play for another 10 seconds, there's a review, which I think hurts the ends of the games and and hurts the watchability of the games for the fans. If getting into conversations of different subjects of basketball interest you and you enjoy exchanging ideas like that and maybe getting a new point of view on certain things, LakerHolics.net's a perfect place for you to come and become one of the members and join the conversation.
Once again, that's LakerHolics.net. Be part of the conversation today, right there at LakerHolics.net. Well, for us at Lakers Fast Break, if you have any questions for the show, please send them out to us at Lakers Fast Break on Twitter, or also as well, LakersFastBreak@yahoo.com. Tom, it's always great talking to you. Don't go into withdrawals, my friend, because it's still many days left until the Lakers get back onto the court. So please try to hold it together until Friday.
I will, Gerald.
Me, all bets are off when it comes to me. But you know what? Everybody out there, try to hold it together. NBA action is coming this weekend again. The last part of the season is on its way, and we're looking forward to more great conversations with all of our guests, including LakerTom, each week, talking about the great things going on with the Lakers and the NBA right here on the Lakers Fast Break podcast.